Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Wednesday's Reflexology Wisdom. We are going to be continuing with our series on building your business. And look who we've got in the house. It is my friend. It is the most amazing, the wonderful Jane Sheehan here.
Woo, 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 woo.
Is this how we're going to carry on, Jane?
Yes.
Absolutely. But the reason that I've got Jane here is that you've been listening to some of my podcasts as to sort of my ideas on how you can build your business. But do you know what? Jane is rather an expert. And also, Jane's done something that I haven't done. And of course, she has written a book all about it. So we're going to be unashamedly kind of picking out some excerpts from this book, which I just think are wonderful. I hope we kind of whet your appetite for it as well. I hope that you'll be thinking that while we're chatting, I hadn't thought of that idea. And if we can get you thinking, I love to, Jane, I love to mix metaphors, by the way. I have an expression, and that is only dead fish swim with the stream. So don't be a sheep.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Now, basically, it's a case of you see so many people in our industry, and they all think, oh, I'm going to set up from home, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And it's a case of they're being sheep because they're doing what everybody else does. As in,
Do you know, I don't have a problem with that if what everyone else did worked.
yes, but you
Because
don't.
sometimes following what already works and learning off people who've done it well
Yeah,
is a good thing. Having a mentor, having people around you, like you and me, we ring each other up. We say, David, my computer's gone funny. And you ring me up and say, I'm going to work in China. What do you think about that? You know, and we bounce off each other, don't we? Because we've done it before. We know who to ring up. But I take your point. One thing I have done is created a niche.
yes, you
And
have.
the more you niche, the easier it is to reach your audience.
Yes,
I'll repeat that. The more you niche, the easier it is to reach your audience.
yeah.
Now, you might think, oh, I need to service everybody because then I'll get loads of customers. Funnily enough, it doesn't work that way.
No,
It's much easier for people to help you get new customers if they know what your niche is. So you know my niche, David, it's foot reading.
it is.
It's also Emmett technique these days. I'm also teaching Emmett technique to people, which most people have never heard of.
You're going off to Ireland to do this, I believe, aren't you?
Yes. In October, I'm going to Portlaoise, which is one of your haunts as well.
Portlaoise. Oh, gorgeous,
Mm,
gorgeous. But anyway, so there we go. That's a little advert
aside.
for Jane's teaching. There we go. But this is what this is all about.
Yes.
This is
So finding a niche is very important. Now, if you've just finished your reflexology course, you're already thinking, oh, how can I get started? How many clients am I going to get? What am I going to do? Like trying to think of a niche as well. Oh, let me ask you this. What do you enjoy doing within reflexology? You know, what's your favorite bit?
yeah,
That's your niche.
that's unique.
Focus on that.
And
Yeah.
that brings me to the first bit that I'm wanting to talk about from this book. You talk
Yes.
about. I'm just going to turn to page 8. I haven't prepared this at all. Of course, yes, I have. So basically, it's a case of what you talk about is why bother building a business and ideas for your business. And there is something that you write in here. It says, "Does the idea fit with your passion?"
Oh, that's so
Oh,
important.
so it's so
You know,
important. And for
it
you,
is
for
so
what I know
important.
about you, Jane,
Your infectiousness, your passion, your
that's
love
it.
for what you're doing, you will end up sitting next to someone at a dinner party and they'll say, what do you do? And you can either go, oh, I'm a reflexologist, or you can say, oh my God, I get up every morning excited to get into work. I just can't wait. I create mini miracles for people every day. I help them understand their health. I help them on their health journey. Oh my God, it's amazing. And they're going, really, what do you do? You know, and you can engage people much more with your infectious enthusiasm than if you go, I look at feet. Oh, I'm just a reflexologist. Like that word just, bin
Oh,
it.
yes,
Just,
absolutely.
I'm just,
Confine it
you
to
know,
Route 101. Absolutely.
yeah, compared to what, you know, I used to go to business networking meetings and you'd get all these like bigwigs in the suits and usually men, sorry, David, very tall. And they look down at you already, which is quite intimidating if you're only little. And they say, what do you do? Like, and if you say, I'm a foot reader,
Ah,
some of them are rude enough to look over your shoulder to look for who they're going to talk to next before you've finished talking. So you pick your words for your audience.
absolutely.
So if I think they're going to be one of them, I'll go, oh, I'm an internationally famous author.
Yeah,
And I also teach internationally, Dubai, Australia, France, you know, in English and French.
yeah.
And I also teach in Portugal, but with a Portuguese interpreter. So the minute you've said that, it's like, oh, maybe this person can
Exactly.
help me
So what
because
you're
that's
doing is
what they're looking for.
you're getting your message across first,
Yeah,
getting them interested, and
yeah,
then telling them what you do.
yeah.
And I
Because
think,
they're not really interested in what at a business
no,
network event. They want to know how can you help me. They're not.
exactly,
They don't want to know what you do.
no,
But in telling them a little bit to show them that I know a lot more than you'd give me credit for, you've already got them interested. So by the time you tell them what you do, it's almost irrelevant because they've already figured out how you can help them.
perfect. You actually had an expression for this, didn't you, about getting your message across before you actually answer their question. What did you call it? It was a yeah, it was a
I've written
phrase.
this book so long ago, I've forgotten what I've written. Do you want me to look it up?
No, 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 it's fine. Okay,
Uh,
I'm what I
do
tell
you
you what,
know what it is?
I can't remember what it is. You had a lovely expression for what you called it, and I've gone and forgotten it as well. I do apologise.
Oh,
Anyway,
you'll have to read the book to find out. Soul Trader.
read the book, Soul Trader, third edition now. There we go. Anyway, so let's move on. You then wrote a section called Get Your Business to Come to You. I thought that was so cunning. I really, really do. It's just superb. And it's a case of it is about what we've already touched on. It's about selling but without selling. As soon as, I mean, guys, that you out there, as soon as somebody phones you up and says, "Oh, well, I'm calling on behalf of, let's say, Vodafone," and for impartiality, there are equally just as good other phone suppliers as Vodafone out there. Sounds a bit BBC, this, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But as soon as you start selling, you're going to turn people off. What do we
Mm.
need to do, Jane? We need to
You
effort,
need
don't we?
you you need to be able to attract people in rather than selling to them. Like when I'm at like a mind body spirit fair or at a pamper evening, I have my stall laid out, so it's kind of obvious what I'm doing,
Yeah.
but I wear an amazing piece of jewelry.
Oh,
And they come up to me and they go, oh wow, I love your necklace. And all the time they're talking to me and we're just chatting about necklaces. My stall is right there with all the eye-catching books and leaflets and things that I want them to know. And I can see their eyes glancing down. And I know, even though I'm not giving them a sales pitch, the stuff is doing their job, which it's intended to do, is
yeah.
catching their eye. But we started the conversation with the necklace, and when they feel comfortable, then they can ask me, oh, so what are you doing here then? And then they're inviting me to tell them in a non-salesy way about what I'm doing. And then that's where your passion takes over and your
Absolutely.
enthusiasm
There we go.
and telling stories.
Oh
Telling them
my
stories
goodness.
like, oh, I had this client in the other day. She only came the once. She had excruciating knee pain. I did Emmett technique, and in less than 5 minutes, she was out of pain. I worked the muscles above and below it just to like back up what I'd done. She's cancelled her knee operation. You know, this is
People
why I
will be
love my
going,
job.
wow, won't they?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. You're telling it like a story, not like, oh, just sign up today and come into my treatment room. You're basically engaging on a person-to-person human level,
Yes.
and storytelling is one way of doing that.
Yeah.
Having visuals is another way of doing that. The sign outside my house, it says fast pain relief. Doesn't say how, doesn't say what I'm doing. It says fast pain relief. If you drive past my house and you think, oh, I'm in agony,
You're going to
who are you
pull
going to
over
call?
and dive in.
Who are you going to call? You know, this, what's in it for me? That's what the client is thinking. What's in it for me? Why should I ring you?
Yeah.
And there's many reasons why they'd ring you. Some people, they just like your personality and they think, oh, I'll come and listen to her read a shopping list, you know. Other people, they've got a reason. They think I'm in pain. So why would they come to you? To help them relieve this pain? And you don't know what their reason is. But if you have enough either temptations, let's call it, then they'll make their way to you.
Yeah.
And when you have clients, why not incentivize your clients to get more clients for you?
Oh, I do this. Yes, absolutely. We've
I've
spoken.
I've got a lady who works in a potato shop,
Yeah.
and she works in a potato shop, and the number of people she's sent to me merely by telling her story to them, and
Perfect.
then they've rung me up and they've come
Yeah.
along for a treatment. Yeah.
She's a client, and you've incentivized her to tell her story to her customers, and then they come
Mhm.
to you. So it
Yeah.
works. It does work. Absolutely.
But do you want to know what's even better about this lady, David?
Mhm.
I've not even incentivized her other than helping her get out of pain.
Brilliant.
So that's one I didn't have to do an incentive scheme, but others I've done an incentive scheme
Absolutely.
with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And of course, hairdressers, they're great at sending people to businesses and that. It's like, oh, you not believe this new business has just opened up, da 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 da. And all of a
Yes.
sudden, you've got a little stream of people coming to you. And
Yeah.
this is the perfect example of how to sell without selling, isn't it?
I have my car badged up, and the brief I gave to my graphic designer was a blind man on a galloping horse has to be able to see it. So she first did a little sign like this, and I thought, now I want the whole car. And you've seen my car, David. It's got a massive foot,
Yes, it
and
does.
then it's got the website along the top, and then it's got details and my phone number. And I park in Tesco's or Booths. They're the two main ones near me. And I found if I deliberately sit in my car for 5 minutes before I drive off or before I go into the supermarket, inevitably someone knocks on the window and says,
What a great
"Excuse me,
idea.
do you mind if I take a photo of your car? I need the phone number for later." Or they say, "What is foot reading?" Or they say, "Are you local?" And then you have that conversation where you enthuse them with what you're about.
Brilliant.
So I would say that's another way of doing it.
Love it.
And the sign, I definitely would recommend a sign outside your house. Now, there are planning permission issues,
Yes.
but most councils have a planning page on their website. And it's a very common question, what sort of signs am I allowed?
Yeah.
And I know in my area, you're allowed an A4 sign in your window, an A4 plaque on your wall, like, you know, the sort
Mm.
solicitors have. And if you have a piece of private land, you can put a temporary sign there.
Mm.
So I've got one of those big garage forecourt A1 sized boards on a base, and I have that on private land right next to the main road.
But you cannot obstruct a public highway or
You
footpath.
can't you can't obstruct the view, the line of view. So I live near a bridge, and so long as my sign is placed, so it's not on the footpathy bit,
That's it.
and it's not blocking the line of sight to the oncoming traffic over the bridge, then I can have it there.
Yeah.
Now, lucky for me, there's a restaurant across the road, so while they're all eating dinner, they're looking at my sign as well.
Awful.
Yeah. So these are ways of getting word out that you're there. Even just
No,
awareness that you're there is the first step,
this is it.
and then getting them to then act on that.
Yeah.
And in marketing world, they say someone has to see something 7 times before they even aware it's there.
That's it.
Now, I've had people drive past and say, I've been looking at your sign for 2 years and I've always meant to come. Now, doing something as simple as putting a balloon on your sign just to change it is enough to jog people into thinking, oh, what's going on?
Well, great. You know, I'd never have thought of that. What a wonderful idea. So
Yeah,
simple.
you don't even have to, like, people go to the trouble of having open days and that. There's a lot of hassle. Just stick a balloon on and they'll wonder what's going on, what they've missed.
Now, I'm going to move further into your book, if I may.
Oh,
And
please do.
there's a section on pamper evenings. Now, can I tell you a story, Jane? Because I actually tried this, and there was a neighbour of mine. She didn't know me very well, and she used to run Anne Summers parties, and she was great at hosting them. Now, I don't know why, but she thought I was gay, and she literally.
Was it one of the days when you were wearing your skirt?
Probably, yes, yes. By the way, I wear a kilt. But anyway, that's another matter.
No, the second time I met David in front of his students, I said, "Oh, I didn't recognise you with your trousers on," meaning you were wearing a skirt last time. But you can imagine how that went down.
And then the same breath, you were saying that you just had breakfast with me that morning as well. Remember?
That might have been deliberate.
It did raise a few eyebrows. But anyway, by the by, shall we quickly get out of this one, Jane? So, did you know? Now I've got to forgot what I was going to say. Oh yes, pamper evenings. That was it. She used to run these Anne Summers parties, and there was. I said, "I'll tell you what. How do you fancy doing a reflexology party?" And she's like, "You what?" And I said, "Well, I said I could come round. I said I could do a little bit of foot reading. Just flag that one up there for you, Jane." I says, "I'll just do a little bit of foot reading and then we'll sort of do treatments." And she goes, "What a great idea." But then she sent out this invite saying, "Come and meet my gay friend from across the road who's going to tell you all about you through your feet." I'll tell you what, I got more repeat bookings from that party than probably any other, face-to-face presentation thing that I've ever done. It was hilarious, and I must admit, I did camp it up, being as that is how I had been introduced. But
Yes.
the thing that I want to say about is this really got me thinking in this section about you've got the pamper evenings, but things have moved on so much because this book was written a little while ago, wasn't it?
Yes, yes, it was.
And
Yeah.
we've now got well-being evenings at schools, for the staff. We've got.
Yes.
Were you telling me that there are 0-calorie events or so? Tell me.
Yes.
I,
I worked for a lady in Buckingham who ran a Lighter Life group, which is a diet company. Other diet companies are available, and she said,
they're going bust now as well, aren't they? Because there we go.
I didn't know that. She said, we give our dieters non-calorific treats when they hit certain steps in their journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a group and I'd like you to come over and give a talk. So I rewrote my foot reading talk specifically for how to find your ideal diet buddy through what their feet are saying about them. And so then I gave them the talk in this vein. great fun, picking on different people in the audience with what their feet were saying, if you've got something like Cheryl, this would be, how you are, and you'd need somebody like Linda over there to have the strength to beat your weakness, so you two together would help each other, and this sort of thing. And that goes down really well. Yeah, it's finding those really interesting opportunities that other people wouldn't think
Absolutely.
about.
Yeah.
And then you've got the talks for various support groups. So we used to work for Buckingham Carers and do mini treatments.
Yeah.
And then they would sometimes rebook you in their own right.
Yeah.
Or we'd give talks to, say, the first talk I did when I came up north was to the Parkinson's group.
Oh, yeah.
We disappeared off the screen for a minute then, David.
Anyway, I don't know what happened. I can edit that out. Or mind you, no, let's keep it live. Anyway, carry on.
Keep it real.
Keep it
Yeah.
real.
So yeah, we gave a talk to the Parkinson's group, and I started off telling them about where the reflex points were that be interested, and then I suddenly realised nobody in the audience had ever heard of reflexology. Now, having lived down south for so long, I assumed it was a given, everyone knew about it now. And then I moved to the northwest, and there's this whole group of people that were looking at me like, what's she talking about? So I had to go back to the beginning and explain what reflexology is and how we think it works and what we do know, what we don't know about how it works,
Yeah.
and then go on to restart my speech once I put it in context. So
Yeah.
even now I'm still learning that, not everyone knows about reflexology.
I would imagine there will still be plenty of people out there that still need educating about what we do.
Yes,
So
and
never
that's
assume.
the other tip I'd give you is be flexible. If
Oh, yeah.
if you start doing something and it doesn't work, well, change midstream. If it's
Yeah.
not working,
Yeah.
what can you do to make it work? You think on your feet.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, there's something that I wanted to go on. I'm diving through this book. I'm actually going through in order, listeners, by the way.
Well,
Viewers.
I think you've missed something, because when you first read my book back in the day, you rang me up laughing your head off
I did. Go on.
because of a story I told about what not to do, because you need to learn not just what to do, but what not to do. And you can tell the story if you like. I think I can see that you remember it.
I do. I do. Do you know what? I was just looking for the right segue to bring it in, and I couldn't think how to. So, Jane, do you know what? I love you so much. Anyway, yeah, what it was is that in this book, there is this story about you at like a village fete or something like that. And you got all your flyers, the stall was set out beautifully, all the rest of it. And then a gust of wind picked up and it blew all of your flyers. And you were running around the place trying to chase after these. And you wrote on in the book and you said, take a load of stones with you or something to weigh down everything so you don't make the same mistakes that I made. And I thought that was just brilliant, an absolute personal insight. But it just got this mental image of you
Yeah.
chasing
It doesn't matter
around.
how much you prepare, you're always going to make a mistake, and you learn from it. And if you learn from it, you may as well share it with everyone else so they don't do the same thing.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And boy, oh boy, I've made enough mistakes in my life, but there we go. Now, we were also talking about business plans, weren't we? About getting prepared.
Yes, yeah.
I want you to just tell me that little sort of lovely piece of gem of information that you told me just before we started recording.
Well, I do remember when I first started as a reflexologist, and we had to write a business plan. And I thought, how the hell do you write a business plan when you don't know how many customers you're going to get?
Hmm.
So I finally figured it out. You work it out backwards. You figure out what is the absolute minimum that I need to live off to
Yeah,
cover my bills, keep a roof over my head, and afford to feed myself. Once you've worked that out, then figure out how many clients you need a week to arrive at that figure.
yeah,
Then how are you going to get that many people a week? Now, knowing how many people a week you need somehow it takes the pressure off a little bit because you've now got a manageable goal. So on the weeks where you get that many people, you think, woo! And on the weeks where you don't get that many people, you think, oh dear, it's going to be a lean week this week. And then on the weeks when you get more than that number of people, you do even better.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about the week that you screwed up.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
this is really important. And as a beginner, you have to weight it. So you have to think, well, in my first 3 months, I probably won't get that many. So if I get fewer then, how many more do I need to do later?
Absolutely. This is it.
And then figure out, is it workable? And if you think, oh, at 30 quid a week, I'm never going to reach that. What if you put it up to 35? What if you put it up to 40? What do your figures look like then? And that way you can find the optimum price
Yeah.
for you to achieve the number of people you need to achieve.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid of price either. I remember as a beginner, there was all this, oh, I can't ask for that. No one will pay that. Well, get over yourself. What's everyone else paying? That's at least the ballpark you should be in, you know. So even if you think, oh, I'm not worth that, well, what we are talking about is, are you valuing yourself and your time? And if you think you're only worth a tenner a session, you shouldn't be in this game.
Too right. And here's the interesting thing as well. The story I always tell to my students is if you're going to get some building work done, plumbing, for example, you'll get a few quotes. You never go for the cheapest one anyway. So why do some people think that there needs to be a rush to the bottom? And in fact, what I would normally do is I'd be thinking, well, I'm going to go for somebody that's not down there. I'm never going to go for the most expensive, but that's just because I'm tight, Jane. But I'll go
Well,
for
do
somebody.
you remember that story with Sylvia, my mate? Me and Sylvia, we went to a pamper evening at one of the schools. Now, we've been doing it for some time, and we'd pre-decided that we were going to charge £15 for 15 minutes when the going rate was £10. And when we got there, we told them what we were charging. They said, "Oh no, everyone else is charging £10." And we said, "We don't care. This is our price."
Yeah,
And they said, "Oh, won't get anyone." Well, let us worry about that. This is our price. Would you know we were the busiest
exactly, because
because there
people
was the
thought you were the
perception they
best.
must be really good. They
Yes,
must be amazing if they're charging more than everybody else.
exactly.
So it did not harm our business by being more expensive.
Exactly.
In fact, it was something that differentiated us from everybody else.
Yeah, yeah. Now, there was something also when we're talking about business plans and money, which is kind of the section. I want something that just made me roar with laughter when I read your book was about how that if you've got a late payer, you sack your clients, you get rid of them,
Absolutely.
and if
Absolutely.
yeah,
Why would you give them a chance to do it a second time? You
yeah,
wouldn't.
yeah,
Just
and
get rid of them. You don't want that sort of client. You want an easy, peaceful life.
yeah,
You're a sole trader. You haven't got the time to be chasing people up every week. So don't let them in your life. And if you accidentally get one in your life, sack them.
absolutely. And then it's the same with no shows as well. I know you
You and I
like
have a different
we
approach, don't we?
do.
Tell them your approach and then I'll tell you mine.
Okay, that sounds a bit like show me yours and I'll show you. So, swiftly moving on. Yes, so what I tend to do is if I've got a no show within about 5 minutes that they should have turned up, I will either send them a text message or I'll give them a call. And 9 times out of 10, well, in fact, every single time, they are so apologetic. And they immediately want to book again, or they very often say, "Can I still come round?" And I must admit, if they ask, "Can I still come round?" I always say, "No, I'm busy, I'm afraid." I don't want them to know I might actually have just been twiddling my thumbs. I actually want them to feel even more guilty. So I will actually pretend that I can't fit them in and fit them in at my convenience. But there was one lady, she was absolutely so ashamed that she'd forgotten. She says, I want to pay like a cancellation fee. I'll pay for your time anyway. I'm getting, no, 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 don't be silly. I said, we all forget stuff every now and again. And again, that's just my ploy to make her feel even more guilty. And guess what, Jane? She actually turned up to the next appointment that she booked, and she bought me a carrier bag full of beer, as well as paying for my next appointment. And she says, I'm so sorry. She says, here's a peace offering. And I thought, oh, that was just lovely. So that's the way I do it. Jane, go on, you, because we do disagree, don't we?
And we do it differently, which just shows there's more than one way to do it. And it depends on your personality. It depends on your business. It depends on the area you live in, the type of customers you attract. But for
Oh,
So for me, it works like this. If somebody books with me and they don't show, I don't ring them up. I leave it. I go make a cuppa. I don't ring them up. Don't make a deal of it. Just go and do something else. The ones who are genuine will ring me in a day or so, panicking and saying, oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot. They're genuine. So I will book them back in. The ones who don't ring back, they're totally unreliable. They haven't even noticed they've missed it. You don't want them as customers. So I don't rebook them. I don't converse with them. I don't tell them they sacked, but I know who it is. And if they want to come back at a later date, I'm not interested because they're not reliable. And our time is valuable.
yes.
We don't want to attract in people that we're wasting our time with.
Absolutely.
So that's my approach. Although other people do it differently again, they have a cancellation policy that they enforce.
Yeah.
I've not needed that. Because of my policy, I rarely get people who cancel.
Yeah.
And the ones who are not genuine,
you didn't want them anyway.
Never see them again. Didn't want them in and don't see them again.
Right. I'm going to move on again now because I've got this.
Yeah.
Guys, seriously, there is so much in this book. I know this is unashamedly pushing this book, but it's a cracker. Computers.
Yes.
So you talk about backing things up. If you're running a business, you will be doing accounts. You will be keeping a diary. You will run probably a booking schedule, that sort of thing. All of this is now computerized, isn't it, Jane?
Yes, it is.
The majority of us, anyway. The thing that I'm just wanting to sort of flag up here when it comes to computers is if you are going to back up, what I find, and it actually came out of the story of when you were rushing to get to a presentation that you would do. I think you were going abroad somewhere and you forgot to unplug your computer and you pulled the printer off the wall. And then because of the jerk from the printer, you dropped your laptop. And fortunately, have I got this right? Because it's a long
true.
time. You told me this story a long time ago, and I think you dropped your computer, and it was like it's in 1,000 tiny pieces, or probably not quite that many, but you know what I mean. But you just backed it up.
It wasn't working.
And you were able to go.
It's not the only time. It's not the only time. There was also a time where the temperature was so hot. We're having this hot weather.
Yeah.
I was teaching in Solus down in Ealing somewhere. And the temperature was so hot, we had no air conditioning, that my computer packed up.
Oops.
Because the semiconductors and such, they're only okay up to a certain temperature, and if it goes over that, they stop working.
Yeah.
Well, imagine I still had the rest of the class to teach, and then I was going on to go and do another workshop elsewhere.
Wow.
So I had to get it dealt with quickly, as you can imagine. Yeah.
But if you've got your computer backed up, it's brilliant. You then can at least go,
I've
lost everything. It's okay. I might have lost a bit of plastic. I might have lost a semiconductor, whatever. It's just a thing. It's not your data. And it's so important. Now, I just want to mention that I keep everything on the cloud. Because I run between. Yeah, here we go. And we disagree now. This is good. A lot of people will be thinking, oh, David, you must use Dropbox or you must use Google Drive or something like that. It's like, no, I don't. I don't like using stuff that everybody else uses. And I'm just awkward. I really, really am. And I use something called Mega. It's completely free and they give you 50 gigabytes on their free plan. It's just unbelievable, which means that at the moment I'm talking to you on my desktop PC. But I've also got a laptop which is what I take with me everywhere I go. But it means that I've got the same, it feels like I've got the same hard drive. So
Yeah.
it's available to me all of the time. And it's just fabulous. Now, come on, Jane, why don't you like to use the cloud?
Because in the last 27 or so years that I've been doing this, I have seen companies come and go.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get that email saying, oh, you've got so many days to move your data,
Mm-hmm.
we're not going to service this anymore. You've got mad panic. You might be overseas doing a workshop or something, and all of a sudden you've got this drama going on. So I've learned to just have these, you can get big terabyte bricks that you plug into your computer that acts like those little USB keys.
Yeah.
You put all your data on there and they can hold a huge amount of stuff. So I always use one of those now. Well, I've got two. I've got one for photos and one for everything else. And I use that. So it doesn't matter what company comes and goes, I've got that data safe.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And then in our chit chat earlier, David, we were talking about Microsoft Publisher.
Yeah.
I have done a lot of things over the year with Publisher, and now Microsoft are withdrawing Publisher. So that means now I've got to go in and amend all those files and change them into something else like PDFs or a Word document or something else, or I'll lose all that data, all that history, all that extra effort
Mm.
of having to recreate them. So if you miss the email saying, oh, we're withdrawing this soon,
Yeah.
then one day you'll open your computer up, you'll go to access something and you'll think, oh, what's happened? I can't look at this anymore. I can't access this anymore. So keeping up to date with computing is really important. Like if you have a website, when foolishly and naively, when I first started, I thought I'll invest a lot of money in a website and then that'll be good for the rest of my career. No, no, not at all. I'd say you have to replace your website every 5 years. Now, it might not look replaced to your customers. You might have exactly the same front end, but the technology at the back end is constantly changing
Oh,
to
isn't it?
keep ahead of the
Absolutely.
scammers, the
Yeah.
hackers,
Yeah.
and so on. So I would say minimum, you should be updating your website software at least every 5 years. And if you don't, then your website can get hacked,
Yeah.
it can get taken over.
Asking for an accident if you don't keep it updated. Absolutely.
Yes, yeah.
Now, there's one last thing, and you don't know that I'm going to ask you to do this, but we're going
Ooh.
to. I want to sort of explain to people, and it's in your book. It's called negotiation, and in the business world, negotiation is pretty much what it's all about. And if, for example, Jane owned a bricks and mortar clinic and
Mm-hmm.
she had got a room for rent. And I'm thinking, oh, great, I need a room to do my reflexology in. And Jane is advertising her room at a certain price, but it's rather more than I can afford. Should I
Mm-hmm.
still come and talk to Jane? Yes, I should. And
Yes, you should.
it doesn't matter whether it's Jane or whether it's Joe Blogs or whether it's Aunt Mary or whoever. You still should. Because, Jane, if I went along and said to you, Jane, I love your treatment room. You're wanting, let's say, you're wanting £100 a day. I'm going to use a round figure because I'm rubbish at maths, but you're wanting £100 a day for your room. And I'll come along and say, Jane, I said, I love your room. I said, but there's no way that I can afford £100 a day, but I could offer you 50. Would you actually be insulted if I offered you 50?
No, because that gives me a chance to tell you what I want. And I've said to you before, and I'll say it again, there's this great guy called Chris Voss, and he's into teaching negotiation skills. And he says, never be so sure that you know what you want, that you're not able to accept something even better. So let's say I was the owner of that bricks and mortar place, and you didn't know that I was struggling to find a receptionist to deal with all the rooms there. And let's say, for example, you only wanted to work half a day in the clinic, but you still had the other half day spare. I would possibly negotiate with you. Well, I'll let you have it for 50 quid for half a day if you give me the other half a day to work on reception. Now, I don't mind if you mark your student papers during that time. I don't, but I need someone to sit, answer calls, and show people through to which room is appropriate. You would be willing to accept that if you had that spare time and that leeway, and we'd both be happy.
Yeah. Do you know what? You don't know what I've got written here. Because,
What
no,
have
I'll
you
tell
got?
you what, I've got goose pimples on my arms now. Because I have written
Win-win.
win.
Absolutely win-win. You've got to find out, like, if you're asking for a price, it's not even how much does it cost, it's what is it worth to that
Exactly,
person.
exactly. Or even, and here we're talking about fixed fees, even to say, I will give you a percentage of how much I'm taking, because then that makes it a much more safe bet as far as you, the therapist, rather than going in for a fixed fee. But seriously, guys, I hope that it's Jane, it has been such a delight chatting with you. It really, really has. This book is brilliant. I mean, just literally, just we're just chatting about what's in this book here. I hope has even given you ideas that you hadn't thought of before. And you're thinking,
Mm.
do you know what? This is amazing. I've now got to rush out and buy the book and see what else is in there, because we have barely skimmed the surface of what's.
I wrote it based on questions that my students were asking me,
Yeah,
and I thought, you're asking all the wrong questions. So we brainstormed all the things that we thought a newbie and people like you and me who've been in it for years, questions that they wouldn't even think of to ask.
exactly.
And then we set about writing. I'll say we, my friend Phil, I often rope him in for brainstorming sessions. And we sat there with post-it notes all over a restaurant table. And we got them all organised into groupings, and then went home and they were my chapter headings with all the subheadings. And that's how we wrote the book. And it's on the 3rd edition now, because we're always updating it when we find something worth talking about.
Yeah,
And I write how I'm talking to you now. I write in the first person
exactly.
present tense.
Yeah.
So even when I'm telling you stories that happened in the past, it's like the time I'm thinking of, I am sitting there and this is happening around me, and it makes it more immediate, and you feel like you're in there and you're doing it with me.
And I have to say, it's so much more entertaining to read it, because to read a book on how to be successful could be so dry. But you've got these stories that you tell. You write it in the first person, and for someone who is profoundly dyslexic, which I am, I find I can read it and it holds my attention. Whereas a dry textbook on how to do this, do you know what? I
Mm.
wouldn't get past the first page. So there we
Yes,
go. So thank you
I've
for
had
your.
other reflexologists tell me that their husband has picked it up, who's not a reflexologist,
Yeah.
and said, this is a really good book, and they've really enjoyed it and read it cover to cover. And that was never my aim. My aim was for fellow therapists, but I think if you know business, it'll apply to any
Oh,
business.
absolutely, absolutely.
Mm.
So, Jane, just to finish this off, where would people be able to get this book from?
Footreading.com. If you go to the shop on my website, I'd be so happy, because then it's me who deals with the book orders. And if you want it signed, you can ask me when you place the order in the notes
Oh, brilliant!
section,
And by
all of
the
that.
way,
But
Jane,
other retailers do
Jane
sell it.
will sign it for you if you ask her
I
nicely.
sure will. I will. And it is available on Amazon and places like that, but they won't sign it for you.
Get a special
Yes.
one, guys. So, thank you so much for joining me, Jane. Thank you so much. This has been amazing. There are going to be more issues as far as this series is concerned on building your business, but I do hope today's chat has made you laugh, stretched your mind, and given you new ideas. And until next time, stay well, stay safe. And that's from both of us, isn't it, Jane? So,
Yay!
or as Ronnie's used to say, it's goodbye from me and it's
It's goodbye from him.
yes.